Hey, what's going on, everybody? Max here with Because Bitcoin. And today, instead of doing a 10-minute Max video, we have a special guest joining us for a longer episode. We have Jim Ski Bum. His Twitter is cryptographer. You can see that down below his name. Additionally, before we get into the charts, guys, do me a solid. Not only like this stream, not only share the stream with your friends, subscribe to the Because Bitcoin channel, and then a further request, go to Jim's socials down below. We're going to link his Twitter and his YouTube. Give him a follow if you are interested in Caspa, Bitcoin, crypto in general. He's a great follow. He's a great friend. Definitely worth your time to skip on over, give him a follow. But yeah, guys, please like the stream so it gets boosted to more people. And we're going to talk about Caspa today. We're going to talk about Caspa. There's a lot of nerves out there right now. But Jim and myself, we are cool as a cucumber. We could not be more cool, calm, collected, and ready for this next leg up. We're going to talk about a lot of things today. It's all, I'm assuming, going to kind of come full circle and correlate back to Caspa. But I know I certainly have a lot of charts I'm excited to share. And Jim, we were talking a little bit before. He's got some awesome stuff to share as well. So without wasting any more time, Jim, I'm going to put your chart up, man. And again, thanks for, oh, that's my chart. Jim, we got to get your chart back up. I don't see it at the
Let's get it
bottom here.
back up. Yep, yep.
Just present right at the bottom. We could talk
Yep,
about mine too. We'll go
here we
yours
go.
first. We'll go yours first. All right,
Cool.
here he is, guys. Here he is. But yeah, Jim, thanks so much for being here, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. It's a beautiful day here, and I just got back from a walk and feeling good and focused, and looking forward to getting into some market discussion and talk some charts.
Yeah, great stuff, man. Well, you got a lot of stuff up here on the screen. I see some schematics. Walk us through it, man. Handhold for us. What are we looking at?
Yeah. So what we have here is a Wyckoff accumulation schematic. And if you aren't familiar with them, they are essentially just a pattern. They come in at accumulation phases and also distribution phases. And if you look at the Bitcoin bottom, the past bottom, as well as the past peak, you might notice that these patterns are evident in the chart. So they happen. Um, and from time to time. And so I found it pretty interesting, as it's something that I'm always on the lookout for. I think we're getting one right here on the Caspa chart, and I've shared it quite a few times on my Twitter account. And the interesting thing about it is that it's happening pretty close to its all-time high, so there wasn't any real significant pullback. Like, we kinda came down, um, not too much relatively. We've come down roughly 40% here, which is, for crypto, it's not too much. Like, the Bitcoin bottom had a Wyckoff accumulation, and that was down, what, like 77%. So a lot of times they happen after extended drawdowns, or downtrends. But it doesn't mean that it can't happen in an uptrend. Um, to me, that just kind of signifies that there is a lot of demand for Caspa here, that we are getting this right here rather than after an extended drawdown. So as you can kind of see,
That
this
that
this
was
part
actually
right.
gonna be my first question for you, Jim, is that we often see these Wyckoff schematics. Yes, they happen at the bottom of charts, right? Like Bitcoin, or I guess at the top. But it's interesting to see Caspa actually performing the schematic after a recent markup period, right? And that might be
Yeah,
a testament to the, I guess, intense or dramatic demand for Caspa as an
yep,
investment.
yep, yeah. That's how I'm looking at it. And if you do a little research into it, you can confirm that, and it can happen in an uptrend. Um, Really, it only happens in an uptrend if there's a lot of demand for something. So yeah, to me, it's further proof that Cas was pretty bullish. Like, people are buying it. And if you also research the schematic and its history, and the guy who, let's see, I have a page pulled up, the guy who kind of coined that name, Richard Demille Wyckoff, he lived from not in our generation. He was born in 1873, and he died in 1934. So he has been talking about this for quite a long time, and um, he was interested in kind of finding deeper patterns in the stock market and teaching the retail trader how not to get fleeced by the whales, by the larger interests. So that was his main mission, and I believe he created a school and like taught this stuff. So the schematics really, um, they kind of test your well, they they're designed to trick people, like to fleece retail. So what happens is right here, people, if this holds, I mean, obviously we have to see like nothing is 100% in the markets. Just we have this pattern here that is pretty uncanny. But
And Jim,
I mean,
question
a
on
lot.
that for you.
Yeah, go
Apologies
ahead.
for interrupting. You
Yeah.
say if it holds here, what is hypothetically the lowest you would allow Caspa to draw back here against its US dollar pair without invalidating these reaccumulation patterns that you have?
Yeah. I mean, I think if Caspa like came down and it started doing something like this, right? And then it's like
Right, right.
back testing this and heading lower, then okay. I mean, it's kind of invalidated, and then you just got to kind of look at it like, all right, well, instead of that, I guess it's just going to be right now. And then now we got this range, right? So now we got the high, and now we got the low, and then we'll
Yeah.
look at it like that. But as of right now, we have this Wyckoff schematic, and sometimes people just don't trust the patterns, but that's the thing. It really comes down to strategy and having faith and conviction. That's what the markets are. It's like having combination of like technical ability and then also a control over your own emotions and
Mhm.
having the like conviction, because you can have a beautiful pattern on the chart and just not trust it. It's like learning to walk. It's like, do you trust your legs
Mhm.
yet? And or, your legs are gonna carry you forward, when you're learning to walk or ride a bike or whatever. Is the bike gonna fall over? Whatever. Like, look at this pattern. I mean, I'm pointing it out pretty clearly, and it may not hold. It may do something like this. But, sometimes they play out. Like, there were a lot of I've been trading Caspa for a long time, so anyone who's followed me for a while, they remember the cup and handle that I was sharing, like, probably 2 different cup and handles. Caspa was doing a lot of cup and handles at a certain point, and, even the stock market, the S&P 500 did a beautiful cup and handle, like, recently, like, while we had the banks collapsing and all that stuff, and everybody got super bearish again, and I was like, "I don't know, guys. This looks like a beautiful cup and handle pattern right here, and I think we're about to be off to the races, and we can start targeting higher Fibonacci extensions." And, there were a lot of people not feeling too optimistic right there. So, I mean, it comes down to just, yeah, like, do some research on patterns and then look for them in the charts, because the people who know them are gonna, they're gonna, yeah, they're gonna play them. They're gonna adjust them, uh, adjust their size proportionally and maybe, scale in at certain levels. And it's funny because you can talk about macro. I'm sure all of us now followed a lot of people who were talking about all the macro economic conditions the past couple years and giving reasons why everything was going to go down. But the charts were just saying
Mhm.
different things. There were a lot of
Yeah.
bullish looking patterns playing out. And so, what at the end of the day is coming to fruition. It's more so the patterns in the charts than it is like the macro uncertainty. It's kind of just people have the money and the knowledge will, put money into the charts at certain times, regardless almost. It's like kind of
Yeah.
counterintuitive because it's funny because you can say, oh, which is the astrology. This is like astrology for men or whatever. It's not all men, but it seems like guys like to do this stuff more. But it's kind of like our astrology or whatever. And then you have,
Yeah.
oh, macro is more astrology, like economics, or is it technical analysis is more, the hokey stuff. So it's funny, it's like choose your slant, and
Right.
do what works for you. But it seems like the technical analysis stuff has really been more accurate, or I would say over the last couple of years, if you've been following anybody who's been really looking at the charts.
Well, the news is always in the charts before,
Mhm.
during, and after, and I really appreciate, how you and I see eye to eye on that, where it's not a dismissal or a blatant neglect of, other styles of analysis because I work it all into my comprehensive picture of where I think the market is going.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But, I mean, I'll be damned, I've seen TA, you know, prove everybody wrong one too many times, and I am also like you, Jim, I am a fractal or schematic respecter because, there's recency bias in these markets, and it's like, "Fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me." Well, it seems like, a couple years pass and everybody's okay being fooled by the same tricks over and over and over again, right?
Yeah,
These same I'm looking at your accumulation schematic 1 on the left. I mean, how many times have we seen that exact kind of 3 drive into the low with, like, a deviation of the range low and then,
mhm,
immediate V recovery? I mean, you could apply it on every time frame. I see it every day on the 5-minute
yeah,
chart. I
yeah.
see it every month, on a local drawback or, pullback. It's like
Yep.
you
I mean,
have to take
honestly,
note
you
of
can
these.
kinda look at this right here. Like, if you really broke this down and zoomed in on
Right.
it, like, just like Fibonacci's, you can see Fibonacci's within Fibonacci's. Like, it's just you can it's kind of yeah, these fractals within fractals, and it's
Yeah.
because people are trading on all different time frames, so you
Yep.
see it on all those time frames. So, like, even, like, right here, you could even see if you really wanted to, like, here's a little here's like a spring type of thing. Maybe this
Yeah.
is, a back test or whatever. And this was the downtrend, but it's all just very small. And obviously, I wouldn't give as much weight to stuff as low time frame, but you may find that that is where things turn around. You find a little pattern on a low time frame, and maybe that marks a bottom just within that little micro environment. So
Yeah. So what else in terms of, Caspa USDT? Do you have any other charts, or is this the one we're primarily focusing on today? I know I see you got some other tabs pulled up there.
yeah,
Um,
I guess I was just gonna talk about Caspa, but, we could also maybe do Bitcoin too, I
sure.
guess, later on, but maybe before that, we could look at this. So this is also Caspa USD,
Mhm.
and, you can really just first looking at the levels, you can really see how Caspa just is over and over again, like, back test, back test, a lot of back tests as
Mhm.
it goes up. And I really think that that's just because, it's fair launched. So it doesn't have um, ICO participants or any vesting coins that are just unlocking over time, and you have people who are selling into the price action. You have the miners, but it is what it is. I mean, that's kind of the worst that it's going to be, and really that's necessary for bootstrapping a network. And obviously, Bitcoin has had that, and it is just what it is. But you don't have the extra sell pressure from any crazy ICO. Like say Caspa had an ICO like down here, and so there was a lot of people with coins unlocking that were like all bought at this price or whatever.
Mhm.
It just doesn't have that. So it's much more fairly traded. The chart is super clean. And then, we have this beautiful back test right here, which again, coming back to, do you trust the patterns? How many times has this happened before already? And
Right.
people are getting so bearish right here, like it's over for Caspa. And I mean, I don't get it. But hey,
Yeah, and I've been trying to be as vocal as I can that and I was gonna bring this up earlier while you were cooking, but, um, contextually where the entire crypto asset class is right now as a whole, being led by Bitcoin just recently busting through last cycle's all-time high of 69K, it doesn't exactly support a super strong bearish thesis on something like Caspa or really anything that's between the 10 to 50 by market cap ranking. okay, which Caspa is within that batch right now. Um, so, we talked earlier, you had mentioned on a previous chart. Well, if we lose maybe like 14 cents or 13.5 roughly, then we have to entertain a scenario where maybe we're in a big range. This was a deviation and we could go back down a little bit. Anything is possible, right? Like your job as a trader, not necessarily you, Jim, but anybody that's watching this, your job as a trader or an investor is to try to attach a higher time frame thesis on an asset class, on a genre, on a niche, whatever, you're trading. Apply it to, sort of the lower local structure that's forming on your asset of choice, and make a probabilistic bet that something is more likely to happen than it is to not happen. And I'll present you guys with some information later on here when Jim is done, where I don't think it really contextually makes sense for Caspa to, quote unquote, be reaccepted back underneath a range high. I think it makes a lot more sense that we're in a bullish reaccumulation pattern before sort of a mania phase commences. But Jim, I'm assuming you'd probably agree with that.
Yeah, I would agree. One thing that I just looked at today that I hadn't looked at in a while, and I remembered looking at it quite some time ago. If you go to my Twitter and look at some of my recent tweets, I don't know when this video is going to come out, but I just posted about it today. Is the RSI divergence indicator, and to me, this right here, especially on the 3-day time frame, is really interesting because you'll notice, every time it's flipped green, you can see what happened. So flipped green here, off to the races. And
Hmm.
I mean, like, after an extended drawdown where it kinda dips into this range, flips green, it's off to the races.
Right.
And it's a little lagging, like, you're not gonna get the bottom if you wait for it to flip green. But you can see right here a little different. It's been in this pretty long accumulation phase, which again is
Right.
also kind of the first time that this has actually happened on Caspa. I would say like this accumulation phase is pretty. The other ones have been kind of more quickly, moving to the upside. And again, like I would equate that to the fact that Caspa is well, one, it's a higher market cap now, so it takes more money to move it, and then two, it's just objectively high. Like it's just gone up some. It's outperformed almost everything the past couple of years. So psychologically, on an asset like that, like, people have to feel confident about buying there because it's so high that it seems high, right? I mean, if you look at the chart, as far as, like, the market cap,
Yeah.
that's another story, I personally believe it's still undervalued, so it's not really high, it's still low. Um, but on the chart, it looks high, like, you're basically if you zoom out, you're basically buying near the all-time high. So for me to see this whole like accumulation phase right here, like that really, like I said when I was talking about the Wyckoff schematics, is to you look at that again, it basically is meant to usher people into the market. The SOS stands for sign of strength, and this allows people to maybe feel confident to enter. And I think that's important because after a period like this, people might wonder if it stayed down, it just started trending down, then people might be like, oh, we're in for a prolonged downtrend. But the fact that it popped back up, it's showing strength, it's sitting above its prior all time high. And then
Hmm.
it's got this backup last point of support where it's really all it's doing is it's just sitting on this range. And so if it continues to hold this and it starts heading up, it's really at that point going to be undeniable to me that it's really got the strength to push higher. And then and then we start looking at those upper fib levels like up
Right.
here.
And that's
So
at 35 cents, give or take, if I'm seeing
and
that
that's the
correct.
thing. It really depends how you draw it because this is the Mexi exchange, but like
Right. Right.
if you go down to Um, if you look at just the crypto chart, which I guess is like an aggregate of everything, it wicked down super low on some exchanges when we had this flash crash. So it depends how you draw it. And again, like you have to be aware of all these things to make your decisions. Because when you draw a Fibonacci extension, and I'm sure you know this, Max, but not everyone knows. Like the deeper the rip or the deeper the dip, the higher the rip, right? So if
Study
you
reflexivity, right?
yeah, so if you go by that, if you go by this bottom right here, then you're looking at, instead of 35, you're looking at 40. And then we
Right,
all know, like when I predicted 3 cents, like way early on when Caspa was like 1 cent, um, or whatever it was back then, it went to 4 cents, right? So when the FOMO is happening and people are getting excited, price can go higher. So that's why I'm kind of saying, it could be anywhere from 30 cents, it could be up to 45 cents for all we know. It could just kind of come up. And then also it could just keep going. Like, I mean, you look at what happened to Ethereum and Cardano when Bitcoin was doing its thing last cycle. They just went
right.
straight up. They weren't topping out at any fib extensions. Like right here, this was well, these are line charts, so they're not accounting for the bottom, but really, um, so yeah, they're not showing the full price action. But basically, for Caspa, I predicted 4 cents based on a full fib extension, and if you go by these fractals as well, it's roughly the same for them as well. So this area was interesting level of mine even back when Caspa was, dropped down to 1 cent because 14 cents was a full Fibonacci extension. And Bitcoin is only just breaking out above its all-time high when it looks like Caspa is behind schedule here, but when Cardano and Ethereum were doing this, Bitcoin, and we talked about this our last video, Bitcoin was what, like 50, it was starting to get up to it setting its peak. So these things
Yeah.
really took off when Bitcoin was peaking. And
Mhm.
in my opinion, yeah, Bitcoin can go way higher. It could go, for all we know, if the things get really crazy, Bitcoin could be like 240K by the end of this cycle.
And
So
by the way, I don't know if you remember this. When you showed me this fractal last time, I said to you, "Jim, I think you might be a little bit early on this one because of where Bitcoin was at."
yeah.
It's
So
something that I wanna talk about
your
when we're done
fractals.
here. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, because you have your fractals, I've noticed right now, you're lining them up more so in the context of where Bitcoin is now.
right.
Um, and so, basically, I think you're taking stuff now from here, right? And
It would basically be Caspa's, like, right around there right now. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
And
yeah,
and
yeah.
that and
So
the reason I do that, and I'll show you guys in a bit, is because I view everything in the context of what Bitcoin is doing. I don't
yeah,
believe that there's truly any asset out there in crypto that can just skirt by unencumbered by Bitcoin not, doing what it's yeah, that's more or less what I would
that's what I was thinking about earlier because
and
I figured
contextually,
that
that makes more sense with where Bitcoin is at, having just broke through the previous all-time high.
yeah, I
Exactly,
figured
exactly.
you were basically taking it from there, which now, considering where Bitcoin is, we can start looking at it like that.
Mhm.
So, but it was really interesting to
Yeah,
me, nonetheless, how these things were somehow repeating here too. So it's just fractals on fractals, and now we do have Bitcoin breaking out to new all-time highs. Now maybe we can actually consider this sort of thing that it's going to ramp up quicker now. And
right.
yeah, yeah. So if you want, man, like you could totally lead into, if you want to show your what
Yeah,
you're thinking.
let's do it, man. Let's do it.
Cool.
Alright, so, I mean, look, starting with CAS USD, and I didn't post this publicly because, I mean, it just doesn't I don't think it does anybody any good, right? But it's, I was prospecting something like this, okay, because it did it last time, and by the way, this move got a lot of people, myself, somewhat bearish locally, right? Because a lot of us, that have been around for a while, we're range traders, right? So I started looking at this when we were here at the time. I hadn't bought any Caspa yet. I've been watching it for a while, being like, man, I should have gotten in down here. Some guys on my team got in earlier. And when I saw this happen right here, I said to myself, uh-oh, this looks like a classic deviation of the range high. You would put something on here like, like this, whatever. And you would probably then target like a symmetrical deviation of the range low. You take liquidity from one side of a range and you look to basically create that symmetry to the other side of a range. So I saw this initially and was like, uh-oh, you know, but then Caspa did something unbelievable, and it more or less kind of came back from what looked like to be a traditional dead spot, which is exactly where we're at right now. So again, contextually, Caspa doesn't like to give these sort of deep reaccumulation flushes besides this one. But at the time, I mean, Caspa was 2 cents. It was significantly smaller market cap. And, on top of that, too, I know a lot of people like to argue that, you know, their asset of choice is completely unbothered by what Bitcoin or ETH or what like the mega caps are doing. I would disagree. And, I'm happy to have a discussion with anybody about it. But from the data and research I've done, everything, unless it's a micro cap, which you could make the argument Caspa was a micro cap at this point, is somewhat correlated or pair traded and evaluated against Bitcoin. So, in the simplest of terms, guys, I'm more or less expecting something like this to happen. It's never going to be perfect. Okay. But I think that this is probably what you could expect. In my opinion, you might get a worst case, maybe a little pullback, like sweep of this block right here. And here I can actually make my screen just a little bit smaller. There we go. Maybe something like this, worst case scenario. I don't really know, right? Like it just kind of depends how we absorb any drawback, and I would expect something like this to happen,
Yeah, I
truthfully.
mean,
And
that would probably fake a lot of people out because that would make the Wyckoff accumulation a little bit more, I mean, I don't know how it depends how low it goes there, but like I was talking about earlier, people would get pretty bearish if that happened. If it came down a little further, I think. It could do
oh,
it on a wick,
I'd
but
get so bullish. That's the thing. I would get I
that's
would
the
get so
difference
bullish,
between us
man.
and them. Yeah, yeah.
People do the opposite. They get bullish as you go higher. I get bullish as we go lower because I
Yeah, that's
recognize
what I'm
what's
really
happening.
paying attention. Yeah, yeah.
But I look at this too, right? So like this was sort of our again, we're talking locally here. We're going to zoom out in a second. But this region was sort of our local complacency shoulder where the Bulls had, their last effort to run it back up. They got stuffed. We kind of distributed here. Bulls try to run it back up. You can see there's a 2-day block right here. They got stuffed. We ultimately, had a drawback. I don't think that level is going to get penetrated. I really think that it should hold. And it will not, to be clear, it will not look like this. Okay. Fractals never play out one to one ever. Okay. But I think the spirit of the move will be somewhat comparable to this over here, where we're probably going to spend, we'll spend another few weeks kind of reaccumulating like this. People are just getting chopped up, getting bearish, and then bang, just expansion. So,
Yeah.
I'll update everybody on Twitter. I'm sure Jim and I will do another video, but this is, kind of more or less what I am expecting locally. And, just another way to look at it, we're going to take it off of log. Okay. Let's go look at the last chart. Okay. Let's go look at the last chart. So here we are, guys, kind of doing the same thing that we've always done right here. At the end of the day, market structure is intact. Bullish continuation pattern is being formed, and I would expect something like this. So, what happened here? Higher highs, higher lows. Everyone who's trying to trade it is just getting chopped to bits. We get our breakaway. All right, where are we at right now? It's, my core belief right now that we are doing locally something similar to what we did, before this November breakout, where this low is going to be respected. It wouldn't surprise me to see, again, maybe a little lower. And then we work our way back up. Everybody gets really excited. Then we kind of do this little like, oh no, are we going to distribute again? I don't want to hold through another drawdown. Boom. You know what I mean? Same thing over again. And that's what I said to Jim earlier on the stream. I said, people get fooled by the same patterns over and over again. It's fool me once, fool me twice, fool me 3 times, 4 times. People, they often forget and, they're easily fooled time and time and time again. So don't let the banker steal your Caspa, guys, because I think it looks really solid here. I mean, again, you really only run into a problem here if we start going too deep. Like what you don't want to have happen is we retrace this entire pump. Like you do not want this. If you retrace this entire pump, we have a problem. I don't think that that's going to happen. But again, if you retrace this entire pump, in my opinion, you open the door to, down here. And then from a range trading perspective, we don't even need to entertain this, right? Like if it happens, we'll talk about it. I don't think it's going to. Um, this would be a problem where like if this was a range and you'd come down here and then put in a deviation below, then you're talking about a big delay before I would still consider to be inevitably higher prices. But to be clear, guys, that is not my base case or my expectation. I think that this low remains protected. Furthermore, I think that this block right here should serve as your last stand. If we got one more, drive down, this is your shove spot, in my opinion. All right, this is your shove
Yeah,
spot.
and just, to piggyback on what you said a minute ago about don't let the bankers steal your coins. Again, if you research the Wyckoff schematics and, going back to, the idea that those patterns generally are meant to fleece retail, um, who knows? There could be a reason why we're seeing a Wyckoff schematic on the chart right now because, those with money can kind of, to some extent, manipulate the price. And yes, there might be manipulation, and there very likely is manipulation in markets, and maybe even Caspa right now. Like there could be some interests, some large interests that are super bullish on Caspa and that are kind of pushing the price into this schematic. Essentially, so they can accumulate more because look at what's happening. There's a lot of not everyone, but there's a lot of people, like, once again, I'm noticing people, posting comments in my charts and things like, it's ramping up that people are getting bearish. Like, this wasn't happening at all not too
Yeah,
long ago, and people are getting bearish right now.
it's
So,
wild.
it's the effect that the chart is having on people, and look at it. It's objectively like it's
So
sitting at
Jim,
its all-time
what we
high.
call that in a mainstream setting?
What's that?
We
What's
call
that?
that time-based capitulation.
Uh-huh,
Because
uh-huh,
price is not capitulating, but they're getting bored. They're getting
uh-huh.
lulled to sleep. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Prime
Yeah, I
prime
it's just
example.
it's boring. People can't handle it. They need constant action. Their ADD brains are just getting they just need action all the time, you know? So,
They do, and also, I mean, we're seeing certain meme coins ripping, people getting kinda euphoric within certain, like, genres of the market, right? And that doesn't look, if there weren't other coins or projects performing well, there would be no basis of comparison, right? It's just that people are looking at others making money and they're like, "Why is, my most concentrated bet not moving yet?" And just because it's not moving, to assume it's never going to move again is a fallacy, right?
yeah.
There's clear and obvious rotations, and we're going to talk about some of that right now. Okay, we're going to talk about this. And one of my favorite examples, I love to compare Caspa against Sol, as you guys know, not because they're similar at all, but just from like how the market viewed Sol last cycle from a psychological adoption perspective, right? But I think you can use it with any sort of mid cap alt from last cycle. And guys, don't kill me for saying this. Caspa is a mid-cap altcoin. Okay. It might have some fundamental principles that make it stand out. I would agree with you. But an altcoin, by definition, is a coin that is not Bitcoin. It is an alternative investment to Bitcoin. That is what an altcoin is. So when I say mid cap, I mean anything that is not in the top 10 yet by market cap. It is a mid cap alternative digital asset investment to Bitcoin. All right. So it's going to trade like one. We are beyond the days of Caspa being a micro cap where it can just gig ascend without any regard for what Bitcoin is doing. We're past the days of 100 to 200 million market cap. This is a real, like, multi-billion dollar asset on the verge of mainstream adoption, in my opinion. So it's going to be somewhat correlated to Bitcoin. And that, by the way, that is a good thing. That is a part of the growing pains. That is a part of the process. Okay. And it doesn't take away from all the fundamental reasons why you love and appreciate Caspa. It's just growing pains. That's all that it is. Okay. So I say that, understanding people, they might not love hearing that, but that's how I view it. And you're watching our channel, so I guess you have to listen to me say it. But again, I'm open to people disagreeing with me on it. But let me Actually, I want to change this ticker here. We need more price history. So let's look at ADA. This is a prime example of what I'm talking about, by the way, guys. Let's Kraken have good price history. Look at those wicks on Kraken. Oh my gosh. That must have been abysmal to trade last cycle. Wow. All right, let's do this. So we're going to draw this out live, guys. We're going to draw this out live. All right. So we're going to mark out the previous Bitcoin all-time highs. All right. And then we'll make it look nice and pretty. Don't you guys worry. All right. Previous all-time high was 69K. Oh, oops. That's right about here. And we're going to talk about what happens, why all these mid-cap altcoins are bleeding right now. This didn't work. I need to move to new pane below and redraw it again. So we're going to talk about why all of these, 10 to 50 by ranking in terms of market cap coins are not moving right now, and they're just sitting here watching, the riskiest of the risk start to catch an early rotation. And I get it. Like there's a certain frustration, and I truly do. I get it, but you have to recognize that like it's actually a good thing, right? And we want this to follow historical trends because it means that it's somewhat predictable. All right, so give me one moment. I have to recreate this. I did it the wrong way. I need this to pin here. All right. Previous all-time high. And we will move this to the pane above. Okay. Great, great, great. All right, so I will label this here previous Bitcoin all-time high. We'll move this to the top and the right, and we'll make the font bigger so you can see it. And we'll also make it orange. All right, we'll do the same thing here. We just broke through the previous all-time high. Previous Bitcoin all-time high. Top, right, orange. We'll make it bigger. All right. So I want to go through this example. I did post this on Twitter, so maybe some of you are familiar with it. But I want you to see, guys, what happened last cycle as Bitcoin was basically busting through the previous all-time high. All right. So let's go back and we're going to look at ADA, which again, why are we using ADA? It was a top project of last cycle, right? Similarly to why I mentioned I like to use Sol. All right. So last cycle from, September through, basically through the Bitcoin all-time high. Bitcoin went up from, it looks like 10K to almost 30K. We'll even say 30K. All right. Bitcoin went from 10K to 30K. And what did ADA do? Really nothing. Like it just sat there. It didn't really even go on to make a new high until after Bitcoin was significantly above its previous all-time high. Okay. But then what happened after that, right? Like if we scroll forward, Bitcoin begins to distribute and ADA goes up like crazy. That's the difference, right? So what are we seeing right now? All right, well, Bitcoin just got above its previous all-time high, and Caspa is just kind of like bleeding, dinking around. It's like it's really not doing much. What are we gonna do? We could maybe even count it from like right here. It's probably just gonna do that kind of reaccumulation pattern that we've been prospecting, something similar to this move, where it kind of lulls everybody. You get time-based capitulation, something like this. And it's probably going to need Bitcoin to be significantly above its previous all-time high. Again, very similar to what ADA did last cycle. Similarly, the same thing with Sol, right? All these, blue chip assets that are not Bitcoin from last cycle, they suffered from the same exact curse. Bitcoin steals the show until it gets definitively above its previous all-time high, and then it goes on to dramatically outperform, dramatically. Right. So even if we expand this out a little bit further, right, let's have some fun with it. Let's throw ADA on here and see what happens. We could be doing something like this. Look how well that actually fits. I mean, that's pretty incredible, right? What if it did something like this? Would you care? Would you care if this was the fractal? And before June, Caspa's at $1.20. You'd look back at this and laugh and go, "Wow, I should have recognized, like, where we were at
And
within this
that's
cycle."
also why it's so hard for people to take profit, because when it happens very fast, and
Mhm,
everybody in their mind, their ability to recognize, like, the time of the market it's very different, it's a very different headspace, because people will be saying to themselves, "Oh, like, it just started. It just got
mhm,
up here," like, it could happen over the course of a month, or a couple weeks where it's really, volatile, violently upward price
mhm,
action, and then it seems like, "Oh, it just started. It just got here." But,
mhm.
when the market's putting in its peak, it'll feel like that. It'll all happen very quick. It'll be, it'll have this, FOMO overtone to everything, and people are gonna be, telling you that it's unwise to think about getting out of the market, because it just arrived. The bull market's here,
Yeah.
and, so you can get into it earlier, like, and then enjoy that and be on the right side of the trade. What happens is people are on the off sides when that happens, and then they try to rationalize, staying in at the wrong time.
Yep.
So the key is to just be on the right side of the trade.
Oh, absolutely, and I wanna even expand on that a little bit about this idea of being late or early or, kinda feeling insecure about your positioning. This is not Caspa specific, but it all comes full circle because 'cause we're talking primarily about Caspa today, where again, I have very much so made the argument, and again, I'm open to, counterpoints for sure. Um, I have made the counterpoint, the counter argument that actually I'm going to put on total too, that Caspa is in fact now classified as a mid cap altcoin. And by the way, it can transcend that one day, guys. But right now, the way most people are looking at it, and I would argue rightfully so right now, before Caspa gets to 100 billion market cap, it's just grouped together with all the other mid cap altcoins, for better or for worse. It's a growing pain, right? You want Caspa to, be in a league of its own. Well, then it has to prove it. It doesn't just get to be there because, you think it's great or, fundamentally it's sound. It's got to prove it, right? So right now it's a mid cap altcoin. So how am I evaluating things, right? Here's Bitcoin up in, the upper left. Here's Bitcoin dominance down below. Here's total two on the right. Okay. What do we see when Bitcoin makes an all-time high? So I marked out Bitcoin USD making a new global top, or I guess going into price discovery with purple dots. Okay, what's something that we see every single time? Well, what we see, Jim, is that we see right here, as soon as Bitcoin definitively gets above the previous cycle's all time high, we see a multi month capitulation in Bitcoin dominance. Now, what does that imply? Well, if Bitcoin USD is going up aggressively, as you can see here, 1,580%, and Bitcoin dominance is capitulating, that means that altcoins are kicking Bitcoin's butt. All right. So again, what do we see again? Cycle by cycle. What about last cycle? Bitcoin went up 250% after the previous, above the previous all-time high. We marked out the all-time high here on Bitcoin dominance. Bitcoin dominance puked. Again, multi-month pullback. And of course, going over to total two, for those that don't know, this is your altcoin index. This is the total crypto asset class minus Bitcoin. In the first cycle here, the first cycle that I have shown here, Bitcoin broke through the all-time high. Bitcoin dominance capitulated. Bitcoin went up 1,580%. Total two went up 40,000% damn near. Okay. And again, I've marked out Bitcoin USD making an all-time high by purple dots on this chart as well. What happened last cycle, 2020 through 2021? Bitcoin went up 251%. Total two went up 715%. So what am I expecting right now? I'm expecting a multi-month pullback to commence where we finally start to see altcoins, including Caspa, move. Because Caspa right now, by most market participants, not the purists, view Caspa as a mid-cap altcoin. Once Bitcoin's above 75, 80K, it's altcoin season. And I expect Caspa to be one of the leaders in altcoin season. Okay. So this idea of you being late to the party, in my opinion, the party is just getting started. I mean, I can't present it any more clear than this, right? I mean, Bitcoin makes an all-time high. We haven't even had a multi-month pullback in Bitcoin dominance yet. If we had just spent the past 3 months watching altcoins rip outpaced Bitcoin, and Bitcoin dominance pulled back to like 40%, I would say, okay, yeah, Caspa, kind of just deviated the previous high. We did just have a really strong like Bitcoin dominance downtrend. It looks like it's trying to bottom. Maybe that was the cycle top. What I'm saying right now is we are probably in inning 2. And for those that don't know baseball, there's 9 innings in baseball. So we are in the first quarter of altcoins going crazy. And a majority of the returns and the majority of the outperformance actually occurs in this part of the cycle after Bitcoin makes an all-time high, as shown by this chart. So again, navigating this back to Caspa here, contextually, this fractal makes perfect sense because this is exactly what happened with ADA last cycle. A majority of the returns for ADA occurred once Bitcoin was more or less already in distribution. So Bitcoin, let's see if I can get this on here. Bitcoin was in distribution right here. And from this point, again, where ADA really began to outperform and it became alt season, Bitcoin went up 100% ish. All right. And what did ADA do? ADA went up. ADA went up 1,850%. So this is what we're talking about here, guys. My expectations are that like very, very soon, you are about to see this chart come to fruition where Bitcoin clearly gets above the all-time high and we see a serious rotation and game of catch up into altcoins. And you're going to see names like Caspa do something like ADA. And again, it will not look exactly like this, right? Like it's impossible. They never work out perfectly. But I mean, I'm expecting imminent upside, guys. Like maybe it takes till April. Maybe we have to wait a little bit, but it's coming, and it's coming very soon, in my opinion. So
Yeah, yeah, I think it's a good idea to keep an eye on the Bitcoin dominance, and very clearly Bitcoin, it's been the Bitcoin show as of late. Altcoins have barely made a move. It seems like they're making moves. Like you can see that some of them are trending up, some AI projects and whatnot, and meme coins, and you can see that people are starting to put money into them. And perhaps it's because many of us are a few cycles deep now and we kind of understand the rotation, so it's getting kind of front ran a little bit.
mhm.
But it's also kind of just gotten started. Like the Bitcoin dominance will drop at some point. So you're not going to have the highest return holding Bitcoin at a certain point in the cycle, and a lot of people know that. So they start to look for the strongest front runners of the coming cycle, and yeah, very well could be that Caspa is one of those. And other projects from past cycles, a lot of people don't realize, but some of them may put in new highs, but a lot of them never will. And then you also have a lot of trapped holders that are still in it from maybe the last cycle peak, and they're just trying to recoup their losses the whole way up. It's like my
Mhm.
my sister and brother-in-law, like probably bought some stuff kind of near the cycle peak last cycle, and they're just, now that things are starting to go up, they're just, hey, how do I how do I sell
Yeah,
this? Like, can you show me
yeah.
how to sell this, please?
And I don't know about you. I've had some concerning text messages from people I know being like, "Hey, I would love to get into crypto. How do I do that?" And I'm like, "Oh dear, we're
Yeah,
back. We're so
yeah,
back."
yeah, yeah. So it's both people wanting to get in and people want to get out what they had just because they see it's going up again.
Yeah.
So yeah, the nice thing about something new, um, I mean, it might be something that goes to the top 10 and stays there. Like I believe Caspa might have that in it to do that. But also, it doesn't have people who are trapped in it and looking to exit, as price goes up. So there is a benefit of that, of being in something new, and that's definitely an advantage of picking something that's up and coming.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I've talked about this chart here before. I still contend that, these will be our levels. And then, whether we go on to, significantly higher, by the way, like is possible. We could explore some of these deeper fibs here, like no question. But these are going to be your levels to watch. And I have conviction that this is going to play similarly to, how Sol respected these fibs last cycle. I mean, to pivot above the 1.618 and hold perfectly, just like Caspa did here. Um, this next area, again, perfect shoot down off the 2.618, global top at 3.618. I think that, 35, 40 cents will be a sticky area for Caspa. We'll reaccumulate again. And then you start the real fun up to a buck 30. But again, I'm open and entertaining some of these higher levels because you just never know. Like if this cycle goes even crazier than people expect, and you have to be open to, $2, $3. Like you simply you can't dismiss them at this point. It's
Mm,
it's simply too early. So
yep, yep, and I'm assuming this Fibonacci extension is drawn on log scale, right? This one
it
right here?
is. Yep,
Yep.
it is. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, just in case anybody's wondering, because I think the default is, in TradingView, it'll be set on linear, and it won't look like that, just so people are aware.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, it's a good point. Good disclosure there.
yep.
I get asked how to draw my fibs all the time. People are like, I drew it and I didn't get the same, I didn't
Yeah,
get the
yeah.
same one as you.
Yep, yep, yep. It takes some, yeah, a learning curve to use the program, yep. So,
But yeah, I mean, it looks good, man. I mean, that's more or less everything I've got, but,
cool.
I think it looks
Yeah,
good, so in my opinion, guys, just a little reminder, like, I would say maybe worst case would be like a sweep of this low, maybe, like, that's probably all you're gonna get, in my
yeah,
opinion, just
yeah.
knowing how Caspa trades and where we're at contextually, so that's
I
all
would
I've
agree.
got, Jim. What do you say?
Yeah,
We good?
man, I mean,
Alri
that's probably good with me too. I think we covered quite a bit, and, yeah, I appreciate you having me, and if anybody wants to, see more of my stuff, you can find me on YouTube, Ski Bum Trading, and then, yeah, Cryptographer on Twitter.
Yeah, guys. And Jim, thanks so much for being here, man. We're gonna link your socials down below. So again, if you didn't follow him in the beginning of the video, guys, give Jim a follow, both on X and also on YouTube. He posts some great content. And Jim has been a leader and a trailblazer for the Caspa community for a long time. I mean, for forever, since the beginning. I think he was one of the first. So give him a follow, guys. He's gonna be, if you're holding Caspa or interested in learning more, he's going to be one of those guys that you're going to want to follow, because he'll post updates almost every single day. He's one of the guys that you want guiding you to the very end with Caspa. So again, Jim, thanks so much for being here, guys. Please like and subscribe. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, check out Jim's socials below, and we will see you next time. Take care.
Great stuff. Thanks.